We're back here on Yaffee Live, Talk Radio 102.3. I am Tennessee's voice of reason. Joining me on the show right now, as he does every week, Brandon Lewis. He is the founder of the Tennessee Conservative. You can read more of his stuff at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Brandon, how are you today, sir?
Outstanding, buddy. Glad to have you back on the airwaves.
Yes. And by the way, once again, thank you for filling in for me that one day. I'm sure you'll do more in the future. Was it fun getting back on the radio?
It was great to be back at the Radio Ranch to see all the folks that are there that are aging, just like the studio, as am I. And so it was fun to see everybody and
Nice.
and to get some interesting callers and to talk about some fun stuff.
Yeah.
I hope the complaints were at a minimum.
No, they complain about me much more, so don't worry about that. It's just it's just all complaints about Yaffee. So I wanted to talk to you about some things that are already coming up for this upcoming session in the Tennessee legislature, and I know you guys have been doing great work writing about it. We have one bill that was just pre-filed. It would prevent illegal immigrants and convicted felons from registering to vote in Tennessee. Talk about this story a little bit.
So, we've got a pretty lax process for registering to vote in Tennessee, and illegal immigration status has not really been thoroughly checked. So if you get a driver's license and if you show up and if you apply to vote, often, especially in smaller counties that are less sophisticated, that can happen. So one of our representatives, House Majority Leader William Lambert, who is conservative sometimes and sometimes leaves you scratching your head. This one requires the Secretary of State to work with local and state officials to create a secure electronic portal for county election administrators. It also requires the coordinator of elections in collaboration with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to create a similar portal to verify if someone is ineligible to vote on a county conviction. And it requires a visual distinction, which is probably the biggest thing, such as a color or font in the face of photo IDs to differentiate the class designation for the purpose of voting. So if you are here, which in my opinion we should not be giving out driver's licenses to folks that are illegal, but we do it in Tennessee anyway, but we shouldn't. But it's going to indicate that, hey, you do not have the citizenship status to be able to vote in Tennessee elections.
So it sounds like you're pretty supportive of this.
Yes. I mean, this is a step in the right direction. What I have discovered with GOP legislators at the leadership level is they are really good at pushing bills when there's not a faction pushing back. And there's really not much of a faction pushing back here. I mean, the only folks, you got convicted felons and illegal immigrants. Well, they don't have much of a lobby. The strongest lobby that probably would push back on this would be election officials county by county, because they hate any kind of change, anything that's going to cause them to do something new, learn something new. They're often very resistant to. But usually, if leadership carries it, it'll happen. But this is, I would kind of put this in the category of a lot of these other bills that are probably more symbolic than helpful. It's essentially, okay, you're here illegally. We've let you come here legally. We're going to give you welfare benefits and free education at taxpayer expense, and we're going to let you take jobs, but we're not going to let you vote. And so it's not really preventative. It's just kind of after the fact, which has been, for the most part, the nature of the bills filed by Republicans, with a few exceptions this session.
Okay, interesting. So to you, it's a good first step. It's a good step in terms of protecting the vote, but you would prefer more, which what you've talked about before. You feel like the legislature here hasn't really done enough in recent years to prevent illegal immigrants from coming to Tennessee.
No, they really haven't. And when the bills have been brought, they have been killed. And it's because of, all the different interest groups that want the labor and the customers and the I guess the budget, whether it's schools. I mean, somebody shows up, you get a family of 5 kids comes in. Well, you get, what is that, 50, 60, you get $72,000. Or no, $60,000. And so, like, you're looking at this, and so you've got lobbies in Tennessee, both on the government level and the corporate level, that are really pushing for everything to be left alone. And so we'll see how that turns out as Trump comes into office.
speaking with Brandon Lewis of the Tennessee Conservative. So let's talk about a couple other bills that have been filed. I know you've been talking with different state senators. I see that State Senator Mark Pody has filed a couple of bills that apparently it's going to combat government overreach. Now, the first bill would declare the international policymaking organizations such as the WHO and others, it would say they have no jurisdiction or authority within the state, and that any federal law or rule based upon a policy would not have any authority. What is this bill about?
So I'll give you a perfect example, and I'm hoping that this actually applies. You know, the city of Chattanooga, which continues to roll downhill as far as I can tell from a quality of life and crime standpoint, adopted this 15-minute city, security cameras all over the place. And this is primarily an effort by the World Economic Forum where they give municipalities money to try to turn them into little bitty advocacy centers. And they do this with liberal cities that have really liberal mayors and councils all across the United States. There's only a few of them that they picked for that pilot program. One of them is Chattanooga. And so there's a lot of pushback on that. And there's a lot of things that the World Economic Forum had the council and the city agree to in writing that they say they'll never do. But I'm hoping that perhaps this bill has some language in it that will keep these municipalities from getting in league with these globalization, cabals, so that they do not try to take away our privacy rights, which I think all these cameras have done that in Tennessee and in Chattanooga particularly, and also, property rights. If you look at that manifesto that came down that they all agreed to on the council and the mayor, it has all these contingencies about if there's a stream running in your yard, well, you may not be able to own the property because of environmental impact up to this and that. And it's just all stuff that people, if they knew what was in it, wouldn't like it. And so I'm hoping that this kind of puts a little bit of a damper on some of that stuff.
Yeah, I wonder, do you think some of this might get held up in the courts? I mean, when it's talking about a federal law that was based on a policy or guideline from an organization, I mean, the state would just say no to a federal law or something? I just feel like that to me seems like something that would end up in the courts. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it'd end up in the courts, but I mean, everything ends up in the courts.
Well,
Every single solitary thing ends up in the courts. And so when they say, oh, we can't do this because it'll end up in the courts, well, even that's everything. You cannot pass a law I would say probably 60-70% of every piece of legislation ends up in the courts somehow, some way. And so I don't think that is a big deal. But that what has happened over the years, Yaffee, and everybody has watched this, we started out at the founding of our nation basically being very strong state governments, very weak federal government. And even though it's not enumerated in the Constitution, over the years, so many of these states have just let, through habit and institutions and the administrative state, take away our states' rights.
Yep.
And so if it's not enumerated in the Constitution, if the state legislature wants to fight it, they could win, but most of them don't have the backbone to do it because they're so addicted to that federal money.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's that last part that really is the key there, that gets in the way.
Yes.
He has another bill out as well, and I'm guessing this is kind of in response to everything that happened during COVID. But Mark Pody's second bill seeks to limit the governor's emergency authorities and powers if they contravene or undermine the rights of the citizenry. So I'm guessing that's in response to a lot of the COVID stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, what governor in their right mind would think that they have the ability to cancel people gathering in person on their own private property? Like that's nothing the governor has power to do, but he did it. Who would have thought that you could have a business that feeds your family and the governor say, okay, you're not essential. We're going to shut you down. We're going to put you out of business. He bankrupted more small businesses in Tennessee than its entire history. And then say, oh, no, but my big friends at the corporate box retailers and the liquor stores and the drive-thrus, those corporate entities can stay open, but you mom and pops are non-essential. You got to shut down. And people were devastated. People lost their homes, lost their businesses, and you could go on and on. Masks, pushing vaccines, and, of course, fast forward to now, like we know that most of the things that were pushed by the state of Tennessee, even at taxpayer expense, were completely bogus and incorrect. And if something like this had been in place, then the governor would have had to have gotten a majority of the legislature to go along with it. And I don't think he would have gotten that. But they were very happy to not really play their part during COVID and not be a second separate branch of government. And they just kind of hid behind him because they wanted him to take all the credit or all the blame. And but they have blamed themselves for not really asserting themselves like they should. So hopefully this would stop things like that.
Yeah, I guess my main question is, we got these two bills. They seem like good bills, but do they have a chance of passing? That's always the question.
You know, the first one probably yes. There's not a huge WHO, United Nations, or World Economic Forum lobby. But the governor, you know, this bill has been brought before and killed in committee, and it may be killed again. But since the governor's on his way out, maybe the legislature will be like, okay, we're going to pretend, or not pretend, rather, we're going to reassert our authority as a separate branch of government. Now that the lame duck is on his way out, we're going to reassert that for the sake of Tennesseans. And even you look at Scrimeti, issued a ruling saying that there was no constitutional authority for any of Bill Lee's executive orders during COVID. And so it's not just Mark Pody talking, it's the Tennessee Constitution and it's the Attorney General.
Well, that's a big deal. So, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully that gets done. And one more bill I did want to talk to you about here. There's also a new Tennessee bill that would require residential schools to segregate restrooms and changing areas and showers based on immutable biological sex. One of those issues that it's sad we even have to have this law, but it seems necessary at this point.
Yes. All of these rules that get introduced could almost be put under one heading, and that is, our educational system sucks so bad we have to do this. Yeah. I mean, they all go back to, I'm like, why in the world are we even, I mean, of all the things we should address, but nonetheless it is here. And it essentially just says, hey, listen, if you're going to have a sports program, if you're going to have a place where people use the bathroom, change, take a shower, there will be boys and there will be girls section. And it's, you know, I've got two little girls, and I could not imagine the parent, although they exist out there. I mean, there's a lot of them that say, oh no, this dude who obviously has a penis is perfectly fine to be standing in the dressing room with your daughter in close proximity, changing clothes or taking a shower, and that's okay. And there's nothing bad that could ever come from that. And so that's not how most people in Tennessee raise their children. I mean, I know that old-fashioned family values are under attack, Christian values are under attack, but I would still say that most Tennessee parents, especially of ladies, and even boys, would not want their children in a restroom with others or in a shower especially, or a changing room. So hopefully this happens. The bill said also seeks to add requirement for private schools and post-secondary and higher educational institutions, but I'm not sure if that's something that it leaves the door open for, or if it has strong language in there, or what. There'll be pushback, I'm sure, from organizations like Vanderbilt and all the other, and even it's amazing, University of Tennessee. I mean, they've got huge DEI departments and stuff. That stuff still happens at taxpayer expense here in Tennessee. So we'll see if this thing makes it through. I think it will.
Yeah, I think it will too, which is good. And we need to push back against a lot of those organizations and schools and everything that you were just talking about. Brandon Lewis with the Tennessee Conservative. Subscribe absolutely for free. Go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Read the latest stuff there. Brandon, I always appreciate it, my friend. I know we'll talk to you again next week.
We'll talk to you soon. Hey, get your toilet paper. Get your bread, get your milk. You better be ready to hunker down and that's all you need, baby. You just need toilet paper, milk, and bread. You'll be fine. Okay, thanks. Good advice, I guess. Although, appreciate it, Brandon. Although I liked Cameron's advice yesterday. Why get bread? Get a steak. If you're stuck in your home, get a prime rib. Then have that gas stove ready. Oh, man.